Lord have mercy. You ever have one of those days where a smell or a sound, or even just the way the sunlight hits the window, takes you right back to a moment you thought you tucked away for good? Well, this morning, it was the rain. Not just any rain. That soft, Georgia kind. Warm, thick like syrup, falling so slow you can see every drop hanging in the air, for it hits the porch railing. I was sitting in my rocker, looking out at the wet magnolia leaves, when I caught that scent, that mix of wet dust and pine needles. And just like that, I was 19 again, back in 1967, standing outside the Blue Pine Club in a cotton dress that clung to my knees and a heart beating so loud I could have sworn the whole street heard it. Now I know you young folks probably don't think much about a little summer rain, but back in my day, Friday night was something special. We didn't have much, didn't have a pot to pee in most weeks, but Mama always pressed my nicest dress, laid it out on the bed like it was Sunday church. Daddy didn't hold with clubs or dancing establishments he called said they were for troublemakers and no good boys with guitars and fast hands. But I'll tell you what, you couldn't kept me away with a chain and padlock. Me and my best friend Jolene used to sneak out after supper, touch up our lipstick with a cracked compact, and hitch a ride with her cousin who worked night shifts at the gas station. That club, Blue Pine, it had a neon sign that flickered like a heartbeat, and when the band played, you could feel the floorboards move under your shoes. But that one night, it was different. The kind that don't ever let go of you, no matter how many calendars you hang on the wall. I don't talk about it much, not even to my kids. And Lord knows, not to my husband, he was a good man, bless his soul. But this memory here, it don't belong to nobody but me. And I suppose now it's time I told it. You see, when the rain started falling that night, out of nowhere, mind you, I stepped outside just to get some air. Music was still thumping inside, loud enough to rattle your ribs, but out there on the sidewalk, it was quiet. Real quiet, like the world had paused just long enough to let my heart catch up. That's when I saw him, leaning against an old Chevy, guitar case in hand, shirt plastered to his back. His name was Raymond Walker. Ray. He looked at me like he already knew me, like we danced 100 times in dreams we hadn't had yet. And you might think it's silly, teenage hearts are always running wild, but I swear to you, when he stepped forward and offered me his hand, didn't say a word, just smiled. Well, child, something in me just knew. We danced, right there in the rain. And every time it rains like this, warm, lazy, hummin' with memories, I go right back to that moment. It was the first time I ever felt real love. The kind that don't ask, don't wait, don't explain. Just is. I ain't never told the full story before. But today, I don't know. Maybe it's time. Maybe the rain's trying to tell me something. Or maybe I just don't want to be the only one remembering it. So, if you're listening, I hope you'll sit a while. I got 9 more parts to this tale, and everyone carries a piece of the heart I left under that street lamp outside Blue Pine. 'Cause not every love story ends with a wedding. Some end with a song, a silence, and the sound of summer rain on an old tin roof. Well now, if I'm gonna tell it proper, I suppose I oughta start a little further back. Before the rain. Before the club. Before that boy with a guitar and a smile that still sneaks into my dreams when I ain't looking. You see, back then, I'm talking late 50s, early 60s, Valdosta was a sleepy little speck on the Georgia map, the kind of town where everybody knew your granddaddy's middle name and the mailman waved at your mama even when she was hangin' laundry in her house coat. We didn't have much, but we had routine. We had rhythm. Life moved slower, like molasses in January, and somehow that made everything feel more real, if that makes sense. I grew up in a little white house with green shutters and a creaky screen door that never did stay shut, no matter how many times Daddy fixed the spring. Mama kept the place spotless, not 'cause we were fancy, Lord no, but 'cause clean meant dignity. She ironed everything, even the pillowcases. Said a girl oughta be proud of the way she carried herself, even if her shoes were hand-me-downs and her dress came from a church box. And I was proud. Proud to be her daughter. Proud to be from a place where front porches were sacred and lemonade tasted sweeter after a long day of shell and peace. Daddy was a strict man. Worked at the sawmill, came home with hands like bark and eyes that had seen too much of life to waste time smiling. He wasn't unkind, just quiet. Hard. Believed in rules. Believed in God. Didn't believe in nonsense like boys and dancing and lipstick before 18. But I'll tell you what. I used to watch the way Mama would hum while stirring grits, or the way the breeze played with the hem of her skirt on Sunday mornings, and I knew there had to be more to life than just rules and supper on the table by 6. I didn't know what that more was exactly, but I felt it, deep in my chest, like a song I hadn't learned the words to yet. I was always the quiet one in class, the kind of girl who sat by the window, doodlin' hearts in her notebook, dreamin' of faraway cities and big music halls where ladies wore red dresses and men played jazz till dawn. I didn't want to be famous, no, I just wanted to feel something bigger than the gravel road in front of our house. I used to think maybe I'd be a writer or a singer, or maybe just marry a man who understood silence and sunsets. Back then, I believed that kindness was the most important thing in the world, and that people, no matter how far they wandered, always found their way home. Now Jolene, my best friend since the 2nd grade, she was the wild one. Hair like fire and a laugh that made even the preacher blush. She taught me how to roll my stockings just so, and how to sneak cookies from the back pantry without Mama hearin'. She was the one who first said, "Annie, there's more to this world than Valdosta and church socials. We just gotta go out and find it." And Lord, I wanted to. I wanted to find it so bad it ached. I didn't tell nobody, but I used to lie in bed at night and pray not for riches or a new dress, just for something different, a moment, a person, a sign. So when I turned 19 and the Blue Pine Club started buzzing like a wasp nest every Friday night, it was like the universe cracked open a little window just big enough for me to peek through. I knew Daddy wouldn't approve. He called that place a den of sin. But I was tired of waiting on dreams, tired of watching life from the front porch while it passed me by like a freight train. I wasn't looking for love. Not really. Just a night. Just a song. Just a second where I could finally feel like I belonged to something bigger than Sunday dresses and quiet dinners. Funny, ain't it? How a whole life can turn on a single choice. One song. One step out into the rain. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Land sakes alive. I can still see him clear as day even though it's been near 60 years. That night, just before the rain came, the world felt like it was holding its breath, like something was about to happen, but I didn't rightly know what. I'd slipped out of the Blue Pine Club for a minute, just to catch my breath, maybe get some fresh air, but more like to catch a little piece away from the noise and the chatter inside. The music was still humming through the walls, that sweet sound of guitars and drums, but out there on the wet sidewalk it was quiet, save for the soft thrum of distant thunder. Then, there he was of Raymond Walker. Ray, like I'd say it now. Tall and lean, with dark hair slicked back, but with a little curl rebelliously fallen near his eyes. He was standing there by his old Chevy, guitar case resting on the ground, shirt clinging to his back from the sudden rain that'd just started falling in lazy drops. I hadn't even heard him approach, or maybe I just wasn't looking for anything but quiet. But the moment our eyes met, I felt a jolt, like a firework poppin' inside my chest. I was 19, yes, but my heart, it skipped a beat like it was trying to tell me something important. I couldn't explain it then. I didn't know if it was the way the rain made his eyes sparkle or the way his smile was gentle but certain, like he was holding a secret just for me. All I knew was, I felt a pull, a tug at my insides I'd never known before. He didn't say much, just nodded once, and held out his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. And Lord have mercy, I took it. Because sometimes, you just know. You young folks wouldn't understand, but back then, when he took my hand and we stepped out under that rain, the whole world fell away. Now my mama was the first to notice something was changin'. She had this look, you know, the one that mixes worry with a little bit of hope. I think she saw in me what I was too scared to admit, that my heart was stirring awake. Daddy, on the other hand, well, he just shook his head and told me to remember who I was. But I was different after that night. I was carrying a secret song inside me, one that didn't come from the band or the church choir, but from a boy who played his guitar like he was speaking his soul. Jolene said I was foolish, that boys like Ray didn't stick around. But I told her, that's how we did it in those days, Jolene. You take what you get, and you hold on tight. And hold on I did, because when he sang to me, even in those quiet moments between raindrops, I felt seen, like I mattered. Not for my clean clothes or my polite manners, but for me. And that's something a girl don't forget. I remember that first dance. The rain was falling heavy now, but we didn't care. He didn't say a word, just pulled me close, and I swear, that night my heart learned a new kind of rhythm. I didn't know then that he was leaving soon for a war halfway around the world, or that the letters I'd write wouldn't all come back. But I did know this. Something had entered my life that night, a spark that would never quite burn out. And you know what? I still hear the guitar sometimes, in the quiet moments before the rain. It's like a whisper from a time long gone, but not forgotten. So tell me, have you ever met someone who changed your world in a single glance? Who made your heart beat faster without saying a word? I'd be mighty interested to hear your story. Lord have mercy. Sometimes, it ain't just the rain that pours down and soaks you to the bone. Sometimes, it's the trouble life throws your way that feels heavier than any storm. After that night at the Blue Pine Club, after I danced with Ray under that warm, sudden rain, I thought maybe things would change for the better. I thought maybe I'd found a piece of myself I'd been missing. But child, life ain't never as simple as a song or a dance. See, my daddy, he was a hard man, and when he found out I'd been sneaking out to that club, his face turned redder than a Georgia sunset. Annie Belle, he said, you're throwing away your future for some boy with a guitar and a shiny smile. But it wasn't just him, the whole town had its eyes on us, on me, on what might come next. The folks in Valdosta didn't take kindly to girls who stepped out of line and a girl who danced in the rain with a soldier and leave. Well, that was asking for trouble. I felt the weight of it all pressing down, like a quilt too heavy for a summer night. Mama, bless her heart, tried to be gentle. She told me to be careful, to think about what a good girl was supposed to do. But I was scared of losing the one thing that made me feel alive, and scared of the disappointment I saw gathering in their eyes. I didn't want to cause a fuss, but I felt trapped. Like I was standing at the edge of something big and beautiful, and everyone was trying to pull me back. Inside, I was a whirlwind. I was angry that I couldn't just be happy, angry that I had to hide my feelings and my heart like it was a secret shame. I was scared, too, scared of what might happen when Ray had to leave for Vietnam, scared of the silence that would follow. I felt ashamed sometimes, like maybe I'd done something wrong just by wanting to love. And at night, when the house was quiet and the world felt far away, I cried in the dark, not knowing how to say what I felt. My friends, well, Jolene stood by me. Bless her soul. She listened to my worries, held my hand, and told me I was stronger than I knew. But even she couldn't fix the things that were breaking inside me. The nights grew longer, the letters from Ray fewer. The world outside kept turning, but inside my heart, it felt like everything was falling apart. I had to decide, keep holding onto a love that was slipping away, or bury it deep and try to live a life that others expected. It was a heavy choice for a young girl, and it felt like walking a tightrope over a bottomless pit. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning of a journey that would test me in ways I couldn't imagine. Sometimes I wonder if it was that storm, the one in my heart, that taught me how to be brave, or if it was just the only choice I had. Either way, I carry those nights with me, like a shadow that's never quite left the porch light. Tell me now, have you ever felt caught between what your heart wants and what the world expects? How did you find your way through? Lord, I remember that day like it was etched into my very bones. The kind of day where the world just stops spinning, and all that's left is a silence so loud it drowns out your own breath. I was sitting by the kitchen window, the afternoon sun pouring in like golden honey, when Mama came and clutching a newspaper, her hands trembling. She didn't say a word at first, just set it down on the table, eyes fixed on the floor. I knew right then something had gone terribly wrong. I picked up that paper and my heart caught in my throat. There, in black and white, was a small column buried deep between the obituaries and local news. Private Raymond Walker, Valdosta native, died in combat in Vietnam. My breath hitched, and for a moment, the whole room seemed to spin. I could hardly see through the blur in my eyes. The clock on the wall ticked on, but I swear, time stopped. Like the whole universe paused just for me to catch that terrible, impossible truth. I was 19 and lost in a world that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. I had loved him, with a heart so full it felt like it could burst, and now he was gone. Just like that. A boy with a guitar, a smile, and a song that lived only in my memory. I was left with an ache so deep it felt like it would swallow me whole. I didn't cry right away. I think I was too shocked. Like my body was frozen, trying to protect itself from the storm that had come crashing through my life. And then, when the tears came, they were like rivers breaking through a dam. I sat there for hours, clutching a crumpled piece of paper, the song he'd written for me on a napkin at the bar. The words blurred, but the feelings behind them were seared into my soul. It changed everything. The dreams I'd had, the hope I'd carried, all of it shifted into something else. Something quieter. Something that carried a weight I wasn't sure I'd ever be strong enough to bear. I realized then that some loves don't get happy endings. Some are just moments frozen in time, like that dance under the rain. But even in the darkest of nights, there's a flicker, a whisper, a memory that reminds you you're still here, still breathing, still able to feel. I carried his song with me, tucked safe between the pages of my Bible, a sacred secret I never forgot. That day I lost more than a boy. I lost a piece of my innocence, a piece of my heart. But I gained something else too, a strength I didn't know I had, and a story worth telling. Tell me, have you ever had your world shatter and somehow found the courage to keep going? I'd be honored if you'd share it with me. Well now, after that storm passed through my life, it wasn't thunder and lightning that I remember so much as the silence. That kind of silence that settles deep into your bones and makes the nights feel colder than any winter wind. You see, when you lose something as big as love, the kind that promises forever but gives you only a moment, the world you knew doesn't quite fit you anymore. It feels like you're wearing someone else's skin, trying to walk in shoes that don't belong. For a long time after Ray was gone, I kept to myself. The Blue Pine Club wasn't the same. The music still played, but I couldn't dance. The rain still fell, but I didn't want to get wet. I found myself sitting on the porch, watching the magnolia trees sway, wondering if the world was just a little emptier than it had been before. I thought about him often, about that boy with the gentle smile and the dreams too big for the small town. Sometimes I'd reach for the worn napkin with his song on it, trace the faded ink with my fingers, and feel a bittersweet ache. I wasn't the same Annie anymore. That fire inside me, that wild hope for something more, it dimmed, like a candle flickering low in the wind. I questioned a lot. I wondered if people really could keep their promises, if love really lasted beyond a single dance, if life had any meaning when the ones you cherish are taken away so sudden. I felt lost in a crowd, a girl who had grown up too fast, with memories too heavy for her shoulders. Mama did what she could. She kept the house warm and the meals steady, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She tried to patch the holes with prayer and quiet conversation, but I wasn't ready to be fixed. I wasn't ready to let go. Daddy, well, he stayed distant, burying his pain in work and silence. Sometimes I think he blamed me for wanting more than what life handed us. It was a lonely road. I buried my feelings deep, afraid to share the truth even with my closest friends. The letters stopped coming, and so did the hope. The days rolled into weeks, the weeks into months, and the memory of that rain-soaked dance turned into a bittersweet ghost I carried alone. But in that quiet, in that stillness, I learned something about myself. I learned how to live with loss without losing myself completely. I learned that sometimes the heart breaks so it can make room for something new, even if that new thing is just the strength to keep breathing, keep walking, keep looking forward. I started to find small joys again, a warm cup of tea, a soft breeze on a summer afternoon, the laughter of children in the street. I found that life, with all its heartbreak, still had moments worth holding on to. And slowly, ever so slowly, I began to stitch myself back together, one quiet day at a time. So tell me, friend, when life has knocked you down and left you in the quiet, how did you find your way back to the light? I'd be glad to hear your story. Well, now, after so much quiet and so many lonely nights, I reckon life has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. You think you're done, that the door's closed tight and there ain't no light left to find, and then something small, maybe a smile, maybe a kind word, cracks open a little window in your heart. For me, that moment came just when I thought I was stuck, caught between the memory of what I'd lost and the weight of what was left. It was one of those slow, golden afternoons when the sunlight dripped through the magnolia trees like honey, and I was sitting on my porch, watching the world go by in its steady, unhurried way. I had started volunteering down at the community center, just little things, helping a neighbor with her garden, teaching the children to read, listening to stories from the old folks. It wasn't much, but it gave me a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to smile, even if it was just a small one. I'll tell you what, there's something powerful about helping others when you feel empty yourself. It's like the kindness you give out comes right back to fill you up. One day, a young girl, no older than my own granddaughter now, came up to me with tear-streaked cheeks and a shy smile. She said, "Miss Annie, you always make me feel like I matter." Land sakes alive, I didn't know what to say, but in that moment, something inside me shifted. That little exchange made me realize that maybe, just maybe, my story wasn't over. Maybe there was more life left in these old bones, more love left in this tired heart. I started to think about the future again, not the kind full of wild dreams, but the kind full of quiet hope and steady love. I found myself humming that old song Ray wrote for me, not with sadness, but with gratitude for the brief, beautiful spark he gave me. I began to open up, little by little, to my family, to my friends, to myself. I stopped running from the past and started carrying it with me, like a patch on my favorite quilt, worn but warm. And I took a chance on love again, This time slower, gentler, with a man who saw me for all I was and all I'd been through. It wasn't the fire of my youth, no, but it was a steady flame that warmed the chill inside. Life taught me that hope ain't always loud. Sometimes it's soft as a whisper, gentle as the breeze that rustles the leaves on a quiet afternoon. And sometimes that's enough. So tell me, have you ever found a little light when you thought it was all gone? What was your new beginning like? Lord have mercy, there comes a time in every life when you have to look at your story, every heartbreak, every joy, every whispered secret, and decide what you're going to do with it. For a long time, I carried my memories like a heavy coat, thinking they defined me, that they'd weigh me down till I couldn't stand no more. But one day, I realized the past ain't a prison, it's a part of who you are, but it don't have to be your whole story. I kept that little napkin, Ray's song, tucked in my Bible for decades. It was my secret, my sacred thing. But one afternoon, as the sun was setting and the house was quiet, I sat down with that old Bible, traced the faded ink with trembling fingers, and felt a strange kind of calm wash over me. It was time to let go of the pain that had held me captive all these years, to forgive myself for the things I thought I should have done differently, and to make peace with the love that was, and the life I still had to live. So I made a choice. I didn't burn the napkin or throw it away, no, that would have been like erasing a part of my heart. Instead, I folded it carefully and placed it back where it belonged. A quiet promise to remember, but not to be trapped. I chose to live with my past, not behind it. That day I felt lighter, like I'd stepped out of a shadow I didn't even realize I'd been standing in. I told myself, Annie, you've done your crying. You've done your waiting. Now it's time to live, without blame, without regret, without fear. It wasn't easy, and some days the weight still presses down. But I'm stronger now. I'm freer. I told my family some of the story for the first time. I let my granddaughter find the song, and when she asked if it was a poem, I smiled and said, "No, child. It's the first and last dance of a young girl who learned what love really means." And in that sharing, I found healing I didn't know I needed. So I live now fully, gently, with a heart that's been broken and stitched back together by time and grace. And that's a blessing I hold dear every single day. Tell me, when was the last time you made peace with your past? How did it change you? Well, now, after all these years, the joys and the heartaches, the rain and the sunshine, I've come to understand something that ain't always easy to say out loud. You see, life don't always turn out the way we plan, and sometimes the things we think will break us end up teaching us how to bend without breaking. That's the truth I carry with me, like a secret lantern in the dark. Back when I was that young girl dancing in the rain, I thought love was supposed to be forever, unshakable, perfect, something you hold on to like a lifeline. But love, I learned, isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go. It's about carrying the memory of someone in your heart, even if they can't be by your side. It's about finding peace with the pieces that don't quite fit anymore and making a new kind of whole out of the broken bits. I learned that kindness, real kindness, is the most powerful thing you can give or receive, not just to others, but to yourself. We're all walking through our own storms, carrying our own scars, and it's mercy, the kind you show yourself when you stumble, that helps you keep going. That's what got me through the long, quiet years after Ray was gone. And here's the thing, sometimes, the love that changes you the most isn't the one that lasts. Sometimes, it's the one that leaves a mark, a song, a moment in the rain that stays with you long after the music stops. That kind of love teaches you to be brave, to be hopeful, and to live with an open heart, even when you're scared. Maybe it's time for you, too, to stop waiting on a perfect ending, on a dream that hasn't come true yet. Maybe it's time to look at your own story and find the strength to carry on, not because you have to, but because you deserve to. Life's too short to hold on to pain that steals your joy, and too precious not to find the beauty in what's left. So, if you're sitting there wondering whether your heart can heal, whether your dreams can change, I'll tell you this: you're stronger than you think. You're braver than you know. And sometimes, the greatest love story you'll ever have is the one you live every single day. That's the wisdom I'm grateful to have. That's the lesson I hope you carry with you. Tell me, what's the hardest lesson life has taught you? How did it change the way you love? Well, darling, here we are at the end of this little journey I've been sharing with you. I hope by now you can feel what I feel when I close my eyes and hear that old guitar strumming soft in the back of my mind. This story I told you, it ain't just about a night long ago or a boy named Ray. It's about every moment that changes us, every love that leaves a mark, and every memory that stays tucked away in the corners of our hearts, even when the years roll on. You see, true love, the kind that lives in whispers and rain, doesn't just belong to the past. It lives in the here and now, in the quiet pauses between breath and heartbeat. It's in the kindness we give, the courage we find to keep going, and the stories we pass down to the ones we hold dear. That love shapes us, molds us, and reminds us who we really are, long after the dance has ended and the lights have dimmed. Sometimes, when the summer rain falls just right, and the air is thick with that sweet smell of pine and earth, I close my eyes and I swear I can feel him, Ray, just beyond the edge of memory. Like he's still there, watching from a place where time don't matter, where no one's lost, and love never fades. And I wonder, do you think true love has a way of coming back? Of finning us again when we least expect it? I like to believe it does. Now, I'm not here to tell you that every love story ends in forever. Sometimes, love is a moment, a heartbeat, that teaches us what it means to be alive. And sometimes, that's more than enough. But I do want to leave you with this. Whatever your story is, wherever your heart has been, remember that love, in all its forms, is the thread that weaves us together. It's the light that carries us through the darkest nights. So, I'm asking you, friend, what does love mean to you? Do you believe it comes back? Does it live on in the rain, in a song, in a memory? I'd be mighty honored if you shared your thoughts with me. Thank you for sitting with me, for listening to my tale. May your heart be gentle with itself, and may you always find the courage to dance, even when the rain comes. Until we meet again, remember, sometimes the last dance isn't an ending. It's just the start of something new.